Entrepreneur, founder, author, and financial advisor Mark Bernstein helps high-performing business owners turn their visions into reality. Through his innovative work and the Forward Focus Forums, Mark connects entrepreneurs to resources that fuel their success. Founders Forum is a radio show and podcast where entrepreneurs share their journeys, revealing the lessons they've learned and the stories behind their success. Join Mark and his guests for a mix of inspiration, valuable insights, and a little fun. Now, let's dive in.
Good morning, America. How are you? We're here this morning on Founders Forum. It's a lovely day in Southwest Florida. Hello to our friends in Philadelphia and around the country and around the world. I have in the studio with me this morning Keith. I'll introduce Keith formally in a minute. And I was thinking, Keith, about, we have our 100th anniversary, 100th show coming up, 100th podcast in a few weeks. So we were planning that this morning, and I was thinking about, how the show started, and it was really about interviewing entrepreneurs about their challenges, their successes, of course. But when I think about it, it's really about their journeys, because the journey is always ongoing. And the quote that I've always thought about, and most people have heard, is success is not a destination, it's a journey. And how does that apply to you, Keith? And what do you think about that quote?
I think it's spot on. You're right. I think being an entrepreneur for sure is a journey, particularly these days and over the course of the past 20 years of me having the business. I think that's what makes it interesting. I think that's what makes it exciting. That's what makes it challenging. It also, I think, separates entrepreneurs from not entrepreneurs. It's really not for everyone, because it is a roller coaster constantly.
And I like what you said. It's kind of almost the lifeblood of an entrepreneur. You have to want that in you. It's what, for me, it keeps me going. I don't usually talk about it, but I'm turning 70 soon. Most people think I'm not that old, but I think part of that is because I have a lot of goals for a long period in time that I'm looking forward. I'm just talking to someone the other day, and this is not a slant on anybody, but people that work for a corporation for a long time, as an example, or I knew an accountant that was working for somebody that apparently was like a slave driver, and he said, I can't wait to retire. And he's very happy. People like could be very happy. But if you're an entrepreneur, it's hard to imagine that you're not doing this anymore. You're just going to fade away and go to your medical visits. I'm being a little sarcastic, but just talk about your health all the time and the weather, and not have much else to talk about. And I was with a group of entrepreneurs the other day, and they said, I just can't imagine that life. And these are all people that are in their 60s and 70s and beyond that are thriving. I mentioned we had a guy, we just played in part 2 of Ed Sittell of the Sittell Institute, who had part 1 was his tremendous business career. Part 2 was what he's done since then. He still has his business, still runs his business at 88 years old. But he also is, and he might be 89 actually now I think about it, and he probably doesn't like me saying his age on the air either, but he's so he's created the Sittell Institute, which is a collaboration between for-profit businesses and nonprofits, and collaboration and how they can work together. And to be a member, you don't pay dues because he's completely endowed it, but you need to commit to a $100,000 contribution to the charity of your choice. They don't care what it is. Right. Over a 4-year period. And they have many companies that are doing like 10 of these now, where they're giving $1 million over 4 years, that kind of thing. And so far they've raised over $200 million of contributions in Philadelphia, but they've started in a few other cities. And his vision is during his lifetime to have $2.2 trillion in 50 cities. And that's his vision. So, guy's got a lot of energy and a lot of juice still at that age. And that's who I want to be. That's because it keeps the blood going,
That's ambitious goals by him. I appreciate that. And I'm familiar with the Sittell Institute as well.
Oh, are you? Cool.
Yeah.
Have you ever, maybe we should talk about that. Maybe you should join.
Sure. I mean, I have $100,000 sitting around to throw at a nonprofit. Why not? Happy to.
Come as my guest for the next CEO conference in May. We can talk about that. Anyway, so my guest today, and thanks for your insights on the journey, Keith. Keith Scandone is the co-founder and CEO of O3 World, a digital experience consultancy. O3 provides AI strategy and digital consulting experience design and software development for enterprise organizations. In addition to overseeing O3's vision and strategy for the last 20 years, Keith also plays an active role in the community. He and his team have hosted, see, you do contribute, so there you go. Mm-hmm. He and his team have hosted several industry-leading events, most notably the 1682 Conference, which is an AI and innovation conference going on its third year this fall in Philadelphia. So I get to say Philadelphia again. Also, it's Fall in Philadelphia is an old Hall & Oates song. I don't know if you know this, like when they first started. But anyway, Keith also serves as mentor for several owners and sits on the Compass Pro Bono nonprofit board in D.C. There you go. So welcome, Keith. Thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
And Keith is Maryland-based, but he's in Florida for, among other things, this podcast. And, so glad to have you here. So tell us about your humble beginnings, which I know started outside of Philadelphia, and, and how your journey began.
Sure. It's certainly been an interesting one, unorthodox, I would say. After graduating college, I went to Loyola College in Maryland, now actually known as Loyola University. I had majored in economics and I minored in theater, and I went out for my first and only play in my life, Oedipus, and I went out for the lead role of Oedipus. And I remember the director asked me, he said, "What if you don't get this role?" I said, "I don't want any other role." And I ended up getting the role of Oedipus, and I really fell in love with acting. And so decided to actually move to Los Angeles to pursue acting. And so spent about 6.5 years out there, and I did a lot of pursuing of acting. I did some as well. But it was a fascinating, life-changing experience in so many ways, and I experienced so many things while pursuing that dream creatively. And I really, really actually enjoyed Los Angeles, and the industry had its quirks, but also was really interesting. But recognized it really wasn't ultimately for me, and moved back to the Philadelphia area.
Excuse me one second. Do you act for fun anymore, community theater or anything?
I don't, no. I don't act at all anymore. And I try to find other ways for kind of creative outlets, but
Gotcha.
but not anymore, no. So I moved back to Philadelphia and really started from scratch when I was 28, not sure exactly what I wanted to do. So I had a decent amount of a decent amount of experience in different elements of marketing. I wrote for several publications out in Los Angeles. I wrote a play that was produced out in Los Angeles, and just had a pretty good kind of creative mindset and background. So I actually had a connection at the Philadelphia Convention Center, and I pitched them on a marketing concept idea, which they bought, and they hired me as a consultant, which was great to kind of get my feet wet. And then I started at a small web design and development company, an online entertainment city guide. It was called AroundPhilly.com. And really kind of came in to take over their sort of editorial team in many ways and work with the writers, but helped with the marketing and the positioning and the kind of promotion of the city guide itself. And on the side, they would sell as kind of part of their business, they would sell website design and development projects. And so I was there for roughly a year or so, and thought that it was a good concept, particularly this is 22 years or so ago. So really, before the rise of some of the more modern, web technologies that exist today, and thought that they should go a more enterprise route. And they felt comfortable staying kind of like dealing with small retail shops, bars, restaurants, salons, that sort of thing. So I decided to sort of do that, not exclusively on my own, but two other guys that I met through the company. They were freelancers there, and one was a designer and one was an engineer. And then I was kind of the marketing, sales, and accounts. And so there you have O3. 3 parts, ozone, 3 parts oxygen. So 3 departments, 3 owners when we started.
Love that. I love that. I didn't realize that's where the name came from. That's great. So, we talked about success and business success is not a smooth ride. So tell us about some of the challenges that you had, Keith, along the way.
Oh, so many, and continue to have, really. It's just, running a business, there's so many, when you start a business, typically speaking, so for the reason we started this business. I mean, I told you the general genesis of it, and the opportunity that I saw out there. But really, it was because my one business partner and I, the designer, we worked very well together creatively. We would do some kind of like ad concept type things. We would concept things together. I would handle a lot of the direction and the content, and he would handle the design. And so that was kind of, again, the reason we started the business, because we thought that we worked so well creatively together. When then we started the business, we recognized that somebody needed to be out there selling what we did. So I became the de facto sales guy, basically, day one, and I never really had the opportunity to turn back. And so I did certainly some creative. When we started, we were a brand communications company, and so we did some, so there were some branding concepts that I helped with, some taglines, things.
By the way, we have a lot in common. So you're like vision, strategy, and the rainmaker, more or less.
Yes.
That's what my role in our business is.
Yeah, exactly. Which, again, somebody typically has to be when you're an entrepreneur, or,
exactly.
inside of a business. So from day one, but you're focusing on things that you're not sort of experienced in, and you have to deal with things that you weren't anticipating. So they say all the time. I mean, whether it's insurance, or whether it's dealing with lawyers, or whether it's dealing with employees, which is really, I'd say, probably one of the most challenging elements, because there's a lot of different layers to obviously dealing with employees and then clients. So it's just been kind of while you have a vision, you have to take things sort of one day at a time, one step at a time. But in the services market, it's a very saturated, very competitive marketplace. And as you and I were discussing, earlier off air about like the one-person consultancies, I mean, it's easier than ever to start a company out there. And that doesn't mean maybe that all obviously are created equal, but it just creates a lot more noise in the marketplace, and a lot more complexity to navigate through for a client to actually find you. So I think that that's something is probably the most challenging, just navigating over time where you fit and differentiate in the marketplace, and that never changes. We call ourselves, as you said, a digital experience consultancy today. Not so different from our roots when we started. We've just kind of tried to be a little bit more specialized over the years, again, while we kind of navigate the opportunity and the competitive, landscape.
You hit on an interesting point. I think what's going to save America ultimately is entrepreneurialism, because there's so many people, people are with AI, people are going to be downsized, people are going to not be in the careers they thought they were going to be in. And as you said, with the advantage of all the technology we have is that it's very easy to start a business today. It's not easy necessarily to be successful in it, but it's easy to start one. So I think that's a really good point that you mentioned. There's two things I wanted to ask you about, but we only have a minute until our commercial break, so I'm going to ask you this first. I wanted to back up to acting a little bit.
Sure.
Because you told me before, when we've talked offline, a couple lessons you learned from the acting experience. I think that would be helpful. And then when we come back, I want to talk to you about the strengths you've developed in 03 as a result of your challenges that you
Sure.
had.
Well, number one, on a very high level, I mean, when you do something like acting or anything, a creative pursuit like that, you're really making yourself extraordinarily vulnerable, and putting yourself out there. And I think you'll learn a lot about yourself in doing so.
Yep.
You have to really, really dig deep. And I think that was a very, very helpful lesson. Beyond that, in the pursuit of acting, again, it's an extraordinarily competitive space. There's no formula to success. It's not like typical businesses. Well, I started this corporation and I put in my 10 years and now I've got this great title. It just doesn't work in that way. I've seen some extraordinarily successful people that can't get work. I've seen some very untalented people get tons of work. And so just kind of understanding that, number one. But two, I think a couple of things that really were great takeaways from my experience out there is when you get called in for a casting opportunity, you walk into an extraordinarily cold room. So typically the people that are casting directors are former actors or actors that weren't successful. So already they're a little bitter that they're in that chair. You also might be the 100th person they've seen that day. So they're fatigued. So, and they often are the ones that read opposite you. So imagine if you're reading for a role and you're supposed to play a character and the person on the other side gives you absolutely zero to work with. That's essentially what you're dealing with. So you learn that if you can be sort of comfortable or you can thrive in that environment. Now, I mean, if I get invited into, it could be the biggest company by the biggest CEO, it just is not really daunting to me because I've at least been invited there. I'm one of maybe a few people or a few companies versus 100. So that really helped me a lot. And then beyond that, I did a lot of celebrity interviews on the red carpet and at junkets.
Nice.
And that really helped me also that, especially on the red carpet, like I did the Matrix premiere, the first and second one. And so, I worked for some no-name little like online entertainment spot. And so they're not stopping at you. The publicist isn't stopping at you. You've got to find ways to get their attention and, get them to spend some time with you and provide an interesting question that there's engagement. So you have to be on your toes at all times.
Listen, another thing we share in common, my beginnings were in the music business as a musician and as a lawyer, promoter, and many of the same things. I as you're talking, I'm thinking about, I visualize myself in some of the rooms I'm in, hawking the music and some of the ridiculous things that happened as a result. And one of the things I found out is the people I was talking to who were like known A&R guys, artists and repertoire in the music business, were basically like doorstops, to keep you out of the president's office unless they really discovered something special.
Yep.
Which happened. Some of them never actually even did that, which is interesting. They're paid just to tend the gate there, kind of. So I get it. So it's a cold experience, and it's but a lot to be learned from it. I did also. I also had to dig deep. So thanks for sharing that, and let's take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Are you looking to scale your business and drive exceptional growth? Imagine having an expert team on demand that combines world-class recruitment experts and industry-leading next-gen AI to help you hire top candidates faster. Introducing Join Talent, seamlessly augmenting your in-house talent function with expertise tailored to your unique business needs. Our team are experts in hiring the best talent for your sector, regardless of your position on the growth journey. Join Talent's proprietary AI accelerates delivery by instantly searching and indexing billions of data points to find and engage the best talent. Whether you're a startup with limited in-house talent resources or a head of talent for a global enterprise looking to ramp up and down your existing team, we've got you covered. Our solutions are designed to fuel your growth, ensuring you have the right talent at the right time. Join Talent, driving business performance and scaling growth with the perfect blend of people, AI, and innovation. Ready to elevate your hiring capability? Visit jointalent.net today.
We're back on Founders Forum with our guest today, Keith Scandone. Keith, so we're talking about, back to 03, the challenges that you had. And I know one of the strengths that you had is that it's almost like a unique ability kind of thing. You figured out what you were good at, what your partner was good at. Speak a little more about the strengths that you discovered in meeting the challenges of the business.
For one, and we discussed a little bit before, so we started, as I said, with three partners, and a few years in, went down to just two of us. And the entrepreneurs, it can be a very challenging journey. And it can be a very lonely one as well. So it's great having a partner or partners, but finding the right partner or partners is extraordinarily crucial and, frankly, extraordinarily difficult. I mean, because it becomes really a business marriage. And so, I'm very fortunate that my business partner, Mike Gatsby, we share philosophically the same things. We look at business the same way and outcomes the same way. We just have also our own lanes in which we focus on, which I think is really, really critical. If we both had the exact same strengths and weaknesses, and I know a lot of owners that sometimes are challenged by this, it becomes much more difficult. So we've complemented each other very, very well over the last 20 years.
I just want to mention one thing about that. It's a marriage, as you said. It's a business marriage. And something I thought a lot about when I got married. I got married a little bit later. My wife and I are very different people. But the reason we were able to make it work is because we share the same values. We look at we look at life the same way in many different ways, but that doesn't make us the same people, and that sometimes can work really well because you have complementary skills and talents.
It really is, and also it just helps. I mean, it's running a business is it can be exhausting. I mean, it can be mentally exhausting, physically exhausting, et cetera. So finding the right partner as well, someone you can kind of lean on, that you need to kind of step away from a little bit, or you need some time just to recharge your battery, or someone might be dealing with one particular issue or one particular client over and over again. And sometimes just to be able to hand over the reins, like, can you just a different set of eyes? Maybe can you approach this? Can you have that conversation? Is really, really valuable. So I think that's been extraordinarily helpful, and just kind of leaning into what, our strengths are individually and then collectively, and allowing the other person to kind of have some free reign to be autonomous. So having that support has been extraordinarily valuable to our business success.
This show is very forward focused. Our brand is the Forward Focus Forum, so we always like to talk about, what do you see ahead? I know you want to talk about your 1-year vision. I mean, what does that look like for you and for the business?
It's interesting. I mean, as I said, we're steeped in kind of technology. We do a lot of digital transformation work, as you mentioned in the introduction. We do a lot in AI strategy and digital strategy in general. We like to say that we're on the bleeding edge of what's happening in technology, and have been on 20 years, and that's been very, very helpful. Although the rise of AI is it's exciting, but it's dizzying. I mean, it really is moving at an unbelievably fast pace. Right. So it's an opportunity, I think, and I think we're often hired for that. As it's not even just like it used to be, hey, I need help with this particular technology platform. Now it's just, I need help with like understanding and navigating what is AI, what is Gen AI, what is machine learning. So, and what are the different tools? What are the different opportunities?
Which is interesting, because this stuff's been around for a long time.
It has been around for a very, very long time. It's just actually, but the proliferation of it now is just it's growing at such an unbelievably dizzying rate. So that makes things again very, very interesting. And this is also just broader. Forget about O3 for a second. Just more broadly in AI, as we all talk about it. It's great for the opportunities, and it's scary because of the opportunities. I mean, really, right. About how much we give over, to our phones, to technology, and now AI, which is basically recreating in many ways kind of our own images and our own personas, which is can be awesome and can also be very, very scary. So it's exciting to kind of try to stay ahead of how do we kind of serve up these solutions and opportunities for clients, how we navigate, because I really do feel more than ever that consulting is necessary inside organizations. We work with a lot of enterprise organizations, so from maybe $100 million up to $100 million annual revenues up to publicly traded companies quite often. And I've actually never seen such a level of kind of paralysis inside of organizations that's happened over the last few years or so. And AI is a big reason for that, just because they are afraid about how much money to invest and how big of a step they might take. Obviously, they know they have to make AI a part of their business, but to what degree? Particularly as you talk about regulated industries, right. Finance, insurance, healthcare, a lot of industries that we work in. I mean, it's very, very challenging. So I'm excited about the opportunity about how we can leverage it more inside of our business, which we already do, about creating operational efficiencies, how we can lean into it more for clients, and frankly, kind of where it's taking not just us as a company, but also kind of just where it's taking the world.
So O3's place in this is, how do you manage and navigate, how you will manage and navigate the dizzying rate of change, and how you'll be opportunistic about it. And I know you mentioned to me that maybe development of your own product might be part of that picture.
It would be ideal. We started several years ago, O3 Ventures, which was really kind of an investment arm. And the idea at that time, Mark, was that we would invest some money and some sweat equity into digital products that then hopefully would be able to expand. And we've done 3 of them so far, and none of them have worked out. So the concept is still there, but the success rate has not exactly been where we want it to be. But yes, I think that any service company likes to have some kind of product or IP. Obviously, it creates more value opportunity in the short term and long term. And I think if we had our product as well, I think we could serve that up if we have the right product. I think we could serve that up to our clients as well, and then provide the service layer on top of it. So definitely have ambitions to do so. We've kicked around a lot of ideas. We've spoken to a lot of companies about potentially investing or acquiring them. We just have not landed on that spot quite yet, but that's still the goal, Mark. We'd still love to.
Gotcha, Keith. One question I didn't ask you that I'd like to ask you, because as you move forward, the culture of your company is important today, I'm sure, and it becomes even more important. Want to speak to that a little bit, your culture and how that can benefit what your aim is over the next few years?
Yeah, sure. It's incredibly important. I think I think it's changed pretty dramatically post pandemic. So if you look at a pre-pandemic, we were a full-time in-house company in Philadelphia. Our offices are based in Fishtown, right on Frankfurt Avenue, and that was a big part of our culture. I mean, we're a consulting company. We're very collaborative, not only collectively but with clients as well. We tried to build strong relationships, again, internally with our teams, then again with our clients. So the fact that we're a more hybrid or even remote, in a hybrid or remote world right now has changed quite a bit on how you adapt. And in some ways, it's good. I mean, so now we have obviously less people coming into the office regularly. We have people around the country, and we even have 3 offshore companies that we work with. We have some consultants and contractors that we kind of flex up and down. So the mode of communication and the cultural model has changed quite a bit. I think at our core, though, it really hasn't changed. I mean, our North Star is exactly the same about how we treat each other, how we treat our clients, and honestly, how we kind of try to create a partnership with our clients. What I mean by that is that
that's what I wanted to get to, because I know that's how you look.
We try to position ourselves as this. We look at it anyway as this 51-49% partnership. I mean, they're 51 because they're paying us, obviously, so they have the upper hand. Right. But really don't like to be looked at or treated like a vendor. We're people, they're people, and we both sort of need each other. And I think that comes with a level of respect that we really kind of that we expect out of our clients. And it's not uncommon that we are very direct with our clients when that is not given to any of us on the team. And so I think that those values, those core values, are frankly the most important thing. Now, you work with these big clients, you have a lot of different touch points and a lot of different people. It's not a perfect science. It's not an exact science. You obviously come across some challenging individuals at times. But overall, you really kind of look out for your team and you look out for what's right. And I think ultimately that has really kind of driven our culture and driven our success. And even though we're remotely, we're not always getting together, in person. I think there's a connective tissue and fiber in that way of looking at running a business.
That's a common theme I hear with a lot of companies, including my own, because we look at it as financial planners, as our entrepreneurial clients, that we want to be their partner along on their journey. So we're like living whatever their vision is. We're living that vision.
Absolutely.
It sounds like you're doing the same thing. And I've heard that theme, and I think that's collaboration is really becoming it seems like an obvious thing, but it's becoming in vogue for whatever reasons, because, it's kind of high tech, high touch. You really need to have those kind of relationships, I think, to move forward today. 2 quick questions, because we're almost out of time, but what are your thoughts about your legacy? What would you like to leave behind as a result of the work you're doing?
It's funny. My business partner said, he goes, I want, when I pass away, on my gravestone, just to say, he gave a and I appreciate it. It's simple. But honestly, I don't have kids. I have a wife, and certainly feel I'm fortunate with the friends and family around me as well.
And I'm sure you have a lot of people you've impacted.
I think so. And I don't know that I focus so much on legacy, Mark. I mean, I really try every day to just do, better work and be a better person individually and impact as many people as I possibly can. So as you mentioned, I'm on the board at Compass Pro Bono, which is fantastic, because Compass, which is in actually 4 cities right now, basically what they do is they represent several nonprofits in these different cities, and they match them with consultants. I mean, hundreds of thousands of dollars of work they get for them for free. I mean, so the reason I wanted to join that board is that I'd have potentially a much greater impact being on that board to the greater DC area and to all these potential nonprofits and volunteers as well. Nice. And then, as you mentioned, mentoring as well, which I've done, dozens and dozens of times. I'm part of Mentor Connect, which is a group out of Philadelphia through PACT. But beyond that, I mean, just individually, organically, I just really, I just have this level of kind of, one, curiosity. I want to meet new people. I want to try new things. I want to experience new environments. And I want to learn from people. And I want, if it helps them, I want to be able to have them learn from me and my journey and my experience and my connections and any opportunities I can provide to them. So I think it's more of a day-to-day thing. I look at it and versus like looking at what my long-term legacy is.
It's wonderful. We're out of time, but you've said a lot. It's really a great story. Great to have you here, Keith. And we'll stay in touch, and we'll follow you on your journey as you go along.
Great. Thanks so much, Mark.
My pleasure. Thanks to everybody for listening, and we'll see you next week on Founders Forum.
We hope you enjoyed your time with Founders Forum and that you found value to take with you throughout your day. Join us again next week for another episode of Founders Forum on WXKB 1039 HD2.